I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty pumped for this solo run because it's about my favorite character in Sacred Stones. And a lot of you guys have been asking to see more flyers in the comment section of these videos, and I agree, we've only done one so far with Tana, and that's not enough in my opinion. So in today's video, I'm going to try and figure out if it's possible to beat Fire Emblem the Sacred Stones using my favorite FE8 character, that is Cormag. Let's start with the rules of the run. It's simple, it's a solo run. We are doing this on hard mode. No hacking or cheating is allowed. I can only bring a single healing item per map, and I cannot use the convoy to grab more healing items. I can however use the convoy to grab weapons and other items, and I can grab other healing items from natural means on the map such as chests, villages, or reinforcements. And I can of course only use Cormag. And before we start, I must say that the main reason I'm doing this run is because the last few runs have been quite difficult ones. And I was kind of looking for an easier experience for this following one. And I thought, what would be the best thing than to just use a character I enjoy a lot? So that's why we're using my personal GOAT, Cormag. The first thing we must discuss when it comes to Cormag is which stats are we going to use? And if you're confused by that statement, let me explain. You see, Cormag is a character who has different recruitment chapters depending on which route you go with. That also means that his level and stats will differ from one route to another. On Erica's route, he begins at level 11 and his stats fall in random ranges that can vary for some reason or another. I'm not sure what they are. While on Ephraim's route, he starts at level 9 with the lowest value possible for those stats. So here for this run, I decided that it was a good time to set a precedent for these types of runs in the future, because Cormag is not the only character this thing will happen to, and he's our first one where we have to make that decision. And I'm gonna go for the simple solution in my opinion and make it a rule for these types of solo runs where we're stuck in a situation like this where it will vary depending on the route you go for the stats, that I should always go with the lowest level. The reason behind this decision is it allows for more level ups and more randomness, which is something I like a lot in FE, just having more level ups to see where a character is going to go, to have less predetermined stats affect the run. And the other reason is because I have absolutely no clue how to add ranges of stats in FE Builder, and I'm frankly too lazy to learn. So as my high school science teacher would have said, keep it simple, stupid. So that's what we're gonna do. And on the topic of keeping things simple, I think you should keep your life simple by clicking the subscribe button and the bell to never miss a solo run upload again, because I've recently noticed that while a lot of you seem to enjoy this series, a very small percentage of those who watch seem to actually be subscribed. So do like Cormag would and hit that subscribe button real quick and make me the happiest camper around. Back to the solo run. Let's bring back up Cormag's stats as he continues to absolutely decimate the early game behind us. Clearly he'll be very good for the early game, even though a lot of the units have axes early on. It won't really matter because his stats are just that good. He'll do a lot of things well for an unpromoted unit, having some of the highest bases in strength and defense in the entire game, a great con of 11, really good HP, and more than decent skill and speed. The only two stats he'll struggle with are res and luck, which will both find themselves in the lowest bases in the game. But overall, he does fit the wyvern rider archetype of being a flying tank that packs quite a punch. Oh, and quick sidebar, I'm pretty sure Wyvern Rider has to be my favorite class in literally all of Fire Emblem. They look so damn badass. And yes, it's 100% because they are riding a literal dragon, okay? I still haven't gotten over this childhood fantasy as a 27-year-old man. Leave me alone, I'm just trying to cling to an ounce of joy over here, okay? Jokes aside, it's time for us to look at his growths to see how good he is on that front. First off, 85% in HP is really good, not quite in the highest in the game, but in the top half of characters for sure. His best growth has to be strength, for my man sports 55%, which is for physical damage character, tied for the second highest in the game with Dusel, only being outpaced by Garcia. Both his speed and skill growths fall around the averages for units in the game. He definitely falls way short on luck, not quite the lowest in the game, but below the average by quite a bit. Add to that 25% growth in defense, which at first glance doesn't seem like much in this game, but as we've already covered in previous videos, defense is generally low so 25% finds itself a little bit above the average. However, he falls all the way to the bottom when it comes to the resistance growth, sharing the lowest in the game with Emilia and Garcia. So with all that being laid out ahead of us, I already have an inkling where this run might hit a snag, but we'll see about that when we get to that very important point. Alright, so it's no secret that the early game will be easy as hell. Cormag is basically acting as Seth would in a normal playthrough, and will suffer no real challenge, so we'll move on to look at how he looks at level 20, as he'll hit it right at the end of chapter 5, thanks to bosses giving a ton of experience points. So here is what he'll look like already and primed to promo, since Cormag actually begins with an Elysian Whip, meaning we'll be able to quickly promo him into an absolute demon early on. What you're seeing right now is all pre-stat boosters that we'll grab on chapter 5, those being the Draco Shield and the Sacred Book, so add those stats to what you're seeing right now. And the Cormag we have here is a little all over the place, right above the average in HP and speed, but a little under strength, not a lot, but just, 1 point. Res and luck is also looking pretty low, but, we kind of expected that going into the run. But on the other hand, his skill is doing really good. And his defense too, which is crazy considering the incoming Secret Book and Draco Shield. So they'll be way above where we would like them to be, so that's pretty good for us. I'll say that overall I'm quite pleased, because while he's a single point of strength behind where I'd like him to be, it's something that's quite usually an easy fix in these runs if he falls a little behind on strength. But overall his other stats are looking great, so hopefully he'll catch up in the areas he's lacking, but overall it's looking really good. Alright, let's quickly move on to talk about the promo right away, since it'll come up here in a minute. And I have to say right out of the gate, both options are really good. In terms of promo bonuses, they have ups and downs for both of them. Wyvern Lord focusing on areas Cormag already does pretty well. It also boosts his con a little bit more and gives him access to swords. While on the other hand, the Wyvern Knight gives a lot of point in speed and also one of the best class skills in the game, which is Pierce. That skill allows the Wyvern Knight to ignore defense basically and inflict true damage, triggering off of the skill stat of the character. So honestly, really powerful for bosses. And when you look at the stat caps, they both make for a compelling argument. More strength and defense for the Lord, and more speed and skill for the Knight. So, where you'd expect them to excel. So they both have ups and they both have downs. So with that presented in front of us, which will I take? Well, normally here, I take a long time to outweigh the plus and minus for each class, and I'd more likely end up falling for the Wyvern Knight, since the cap in strength is still pretty decent and you get better speed, skill, and you also get access to the most importantly Pierce, which is really good. The downside being of that class is that the sacred twin weapon that you have access to is simply only Vidofnir, the lance, that has a pretty low might. It does have a good defense boost, but Cormag should do pretty good on defense by himself. I will, however, be honest here. It feels wrong to make Cormag anything but a Wyvern Lord, given that he's our only option in the game to run Wyvern Lord as a class for these run, and his brother Glenn was also a Wyvern Lord, so it kind of pays homage to him by going that, and it would feel weird to go the class of the character who kills his brother, that damn bastard Valtar. So here, fully sentimentally, I decide to go Wyvern Lord, because that just feels right, And anyways, I'm sure he'll be good in both classes, and he'd be great in Wyvern Knight too, so I'm not worried about the character too much. So something I really haven't had time to touch on is how quickly we're clearing these maps. You've been seeing it in the background, but because of Cormag's high movement and flying ability, which has allowed him to zoom past a lot of regular problems, to get to bosses and objective pretty quickly and much faster than any other unit would be able to. And you'll also see me start using swords a lot, since I decide to use Adalma over Vidofnir, because I'm trying to maximize the damage on the final boss And we all know at this point that Vidofnir is pretty low might. And I also believe Cormag has quite enough natural defense where the +5 passive, we don't need it desperately, but what we'll want probably is the +5 res that is the passive skill given by Adalma. And I think Cormag will desperately want this later in the game. So at S rank in Sword is what we're going for here. The amount of problems we will run into are extremely minimal going forward, but there are still a few things of note worth highlighting. First of all, we'll pick up the Angelic Robe on chapter 8, but we'll also run into the first alarming thing in this run. And no, it's not the archers, as Cormag doesn't seem to care about flyers being weak to bows, but the alarming thing will be the damage from mages. Yeah, they can do a lot, given that his resistance isn't great. It won't be a huge problem right this minute. Well, I mean, you know, on chapter 8, they could have been a problem, but it won't become a problem right away, as chapter 8 is pretty early on in the game, but they still look pretty formidable in terms of damage. So later down the line, I think it's something we'll have to worry about, but I just wanted to bring it up now because, you know, it's clearly going to be important for us going forward. But we'll clear out this map and promptly head to chapter 9 as we pick Erica's route as is usual for these runs. On chapter 9, this is one of the rare times where we'll get to save the house on the left hand side of the map to grab the extra Draco shield, boosting our defense even further. And I was recently made aware, and that was after recording this run, that apparently with flyers and their high movement, there is a way to save both houses to get the extra reward at the end of the map, which is an extra Angelic Robe. I didn't do it in this run because I did not know before, but in the next flyer run, I will make sure to test that out to see if it actually happens. And anyways, the next flyers will have a much harder time with HP than Cormag will, so it might be a strategy that'll actually affect the run more than it does this time around. So we'll see that. I just wanted to bring it up in case somebody brings it up in the comments. But honestly, as some of the gameplays behind here, I can't stress enough, and I'm trying to show you guys in the video, but I'll keep bringing it up, how good Cormag is right now. Yes, usually characters around this point of the game in solo runs are usually pretty overpowered, but after doing Calm, which I did know I did a long time ago, but just re-editing the video just brought back terrible memories. And all before that, it feels good to just have a character that gets things down effortlessly. So, you know, that feels good for my soul, but, you know, this run is really going by quickly and decisively, which is something I haven't had happen in a while. Even the characters that did really good, at points there were things that made it a little hard. For example, Arthur and Tana had pretty bad defense, which made it that most units could sometimes sneak in some damage that we wouldn't like. But here it's like, if there isn't a mage around, we are gravy. Nothing is problematic. So just wanted to bring that up because I feel it's important for this run. I feel it's important to drive the point home of how easy this is. So while we clear through these maps like it's nobody's business, let's just take a look at what we're gonna get from these following maps. We get a goddess icon from Tethys post chapter 10 to boost our weak luck, so that's a good item to get. We won't actually need the subsequent secret book that we usually grab on chapter 11 and the energy ring from chapter 12, since, well, those two stats are already maxed out. Yeah, that kind of explains why Cormag will continue to dominate going forward, I guess. And let's take a moment to quickly stop on chapter 14, where we'll grab this spear from the chest, because spears are a great range item for the later maps in the game, so we'll stock up on them right away if we can early on, since we have an abundance of chest keys. And something here will happen for the first time in one of these runs. You see the priest up top on this chapter has a berserk staff, and usually he never uses it. And I think it has to do with the fact that for most other characters, the hit rate must be around 0, so he doesn't bother using it. That's not the case here for Cormag, because his res is so darn low. And well, that's my best hypothesis, because there is no way I'm figuring out the whole calculation. As you can see here, it's not a terribly hard calculation, but I'm just very lazy and terrified of math generally. I'm an FE tuber after all. Anywho, Cormag actually gets hit by Berserk, and in a normal run, I'd be worried about it. Here, I'm just going to let him go on a murderous rampage because it's funny. Yeah, that was kind of fun. And now we'll take on Carlisle, who's actually a little scarier with his wind sword because it's super effective against flyers. And I'm pretty sure it bases its damage off of your res, so not great for Cormag. So Cormag doesn't love that, let's say. But the hit rate will be bad, and thank you for the crit. and we immediately get a 0 stat level up. That's a bummer. But our stats are all pretty high already, so you know, it's the luck of the draw. The Cavalier reinforcement was also not able to reach us at all, so yeah, this map went on very quickly. You can see why I think this character is pretty awesome right now. Alright, time to start chapter 15, where we'll go through the usual rodeo of grabbing the boots, body ring, and for this time the Worm Slayer 2. It'll take a little bit of time due to Cormag's poor luck, but he'll still be more lucky than Null, who once again perishes all alone like the loser he is. Say it with me, everyone. Bye-bye, Null. Other than that, we'll save Ephraim from the bottom area, but not much else will be going on this chapter, as other than waiting in the sand, it is another breeze for Cormag, who straight up dominates all the way through. He does, however, get his revenge on that bastard Valter, as it should be, and avenges his late brother Glenn. So, F you, Valter. And let's move on to chapter 16, where we will slow things down a little bit as we finally reach level 20, which means it's time to look at our boy Cormag in all of his glory. And here he is, folks, the chosen one. Baby, look at all that beautiful green on the screen. We love to see it. And yes, when you look at his most likely expected outcomes, he's pretty close to cap or at the cap on HP, strength, speed, and skill, but it's still impressive that he got such good growths. And where I'm truly impressed is at his defense. Yes, he did get 2 Dragon Shield, but it still puts him 2 to 3 points above the most likely expected outcome, and that's pretty dope. And just really good defense there. And I'm feeling pretty good here about foregoing Vidofnir, because that means he'll be tanky enough. I'm like 99% sure. So we get to leverage the extra might off of Adalma and do more damage to the Demon King, which is always something we like to see. On the other hand, his luck is a little below where we'd like, especially given the Goddess icon, and the same thing goes for resistance, because this screenshot is post the talisman you get on chapter 16, so it looks a little rough on that end, which is why on this chapter, before grabbing the aforementioned talisman, we'll clear out the 2 long-range stages as quickly as possible, because as you can tell, if they hit, it's gonna hurt. And on this map, I realized something quite funny that some of you may have noticed already and most likely already commented on, but I hadn't changed our game speed, text speed, and animation, which I usually do at the start of every run. Yeah, so I changed it up now, and that's a pretty big oversight. Hopefully it doesn't cost us too much on the time down the line. But with that being said, we take Orson out, reunite him with his wife, and move on to the last stretch of the game. So here on chapter 17, it will go by pretty quickly. Even though this map does contain a lot of powerful magic users, Cormag gets to skip a whole lot of this level due to superior movement and the ability to one round everything. We'll even manage to keep all the villagers alive, which is another first. It's not useful in any way for this run, but it's a first nonetheless. And now we'll move on to our first real challenge of this run, chapter 18. A lot of characters tend to struggle with this one, but Cormag's hit rate and damage intake will be particularly bad, and it will lead to a very quick first death in the entire run. And yeah, he'll need a tiny bit of luck to defeat this map. But while we're here watching him do his best, I want to get back to what I just said. This is the first death of the run, which is an impressive feat in and of itself. But it also brings me to a topic that is often brought up in the comments, which is tracking deaths for these runs. And while it may be quite easy here for Cormag, as he only has one so far, it is something that is quite tedious to do normally, because characters tend to die a lot more. And it's something that I never do. And a lot of people have asked me to include game overs in the ranking I make at the end for these runs. And I want to take a minute to explain why I don't. And the main factor is, of course, the tedium of going back and cataloging each and every single death. But it also has to do with the simple fact that not all deaths are created equally. I don't think it's a metric that would enlighten us much, other than in fringe cases like Cormag here, where it does kind of enlighten us a lot. While some deaths are caused by the character just not being well suited for a level, others come simply from bad luck, and even some of them come from inattention on my end. You see, these runs have become pretty easy for me to do with time, so I often find myself either watching a Twitch stream, a YouTube video, sometimes a TV show, while making these videos. And it does happen that small mistakes due to inattention happen. Because of that, it leads sometimes to game overs, and those game overs aren't really representative. As mentioned earlier, yes, some of them are, it's simply because the character is not good enough, but some are because I made a mistake, because I was inattentive. So I feel it would be unfair to judge characters too harshly because of those, and would skew the rankings by a lot in my book. Yeah, anyways, that's kind of about it for why I don't do it. Whether you like that or not, it is what it is. But let's get back to the third attempt here with Cormag, where I will go back to a strategy I use with other fly units, and that is going to the bottom of the map before the eggs all over the map start hatching. And what I'll do after clearing out the space below is slowly let the Gorgons trickle in towards Cormag. And once they step over the fire tiles, we'll just dip over the ledge where they can't physically reach us. Despite it still being within the range of attack, since they can't walk onto that space, those Gorgons for some reason simply stop moving. And I cannot explain why they do that. But we will rinse and repeat that strategy until all the Gorgons have stepped on fire tiles and led to their unfortunate demise, which kind of takes care of one of the hardest parts of this chapter. The rest beyond that is to slowly walk through and clear Gorgons one by one using pure waters, a Dalma for the extra resistance, and just picking a god and praying, because we'll need luck. To take care of the boss, who is arguably the scariest Gorgon, we stand in range for it to hit us with a damaging spell, because we want to avoid getting hit by stone, because that's an automatic game over. And when you're in range of damage but can't counterattack for some reason, some of the Gorgons will prioritize damage over stone, which is another thing I can't explain on this map, but the boss works exactly like that. So that's what we'll do, and then we'll clear it out. Once that is done, it's a question of taking care of the rest of the Gorgons. And this area here can be a little scary, but we will have to take our javelin out to start taking them out. The reason being, some of them are scary, and yes, that might lead to stone uses, but they don't all work that way. See, this one here goes for the demon surge. It does hit us with 42% chance to hit. This one does go for stone, and we dodge with the 27. We do kill it just right after, and you can see this one goes in 3 range and uses stone, and so does this one, and we dodge both of them, so that's pretty good. But you can see why this is a scary moment, because this cluster, in more cases than not, we should have gotten hit by one of those stones, so we gotta be careful for that not to happen. So what I'll do here is I'll go kill the bottom one using the steel blades. I could have used the Dalma if I wanted to. The reason I went to that spot specifically, even though I get hit by the trap, is because the other Gorgon couldn't counter attack on me. So that meant I get to avoid that damage and then later take her out individually. So with that being said, the map is pretty much over. We have 2 Gorgons to clean down below, but they are easy kills as they tend to not move, and any of the physical units that are left are not a problem. And I guess we did get lucky doing this map in 3 tries only with those hit rates. It feels pretty lucky to me, and we get to finally move on. We could have gotten roadblock for a much longer time though, I must insist. I'll gloss over chapter 19 as it's a simple question of getting the brave sword from that one hero that drops it, and then just rushing Reeve on turn 3 or 4 to clear this map post haste and move on to chapter 20. Even with magical damage, Cormag does not care too much about this map. And unsurprisingly, once again, Cormag makes quite short work of chapter 20 as we simply waltz over the water, reach Morva in a few turns. He is a 1-turn potential, but we still have to heal in front of him because some of the eyes did some damage to us, so we use an elixir there, and we take the damage from Morva, of course, because our dodge rate on him is not great, but we kill him. I will say that while I wasn't worried about the chapter, when I saw this shadow shot hit me after Morva had attacked, my heart skipped a beat a little, because with my general luck, normally that's a game over. Like 9 times out of 10 for me, that's a game over here. But we clean it up pretty quickly and get to move on to the final map. And here we are on the final chapter. Will it be as easy as the rest of the run? Not exactly, and I'll show you what I mean right here, right now. With the zombie dragon, our usual first kind of roadblock, and the problem here is we don't have the damage to 1-round him. So we either need a crit or a dodge. Or we can always use the spear to chip him down a little and then finish him off. But the one problem is the spear doesn't do enough damage so that we can kill him in one hit following that. So that means there is a possibility of spending 2 elixir just to clear him. Since dodging doesn't seem like much of an option, since it has 70-ish% hit rate on us, so that'll cause some issue, and critting him isn't much more reliable. But that isn't the biggest problem, I'd say, because there is a lot of Cormag's one weakness on this map. And yes, of course, I'm making reference to magic. There is a cackle of gorgons. Is that the word for a group of gorgons? A cackle? I feel like that's appropriate. So yeah, let's just call it a cackle. There is a cackle of gorgons surrounding Lyon, and they all have pretty good hit rate on us. So dodging will be an issue. I will use some pure waters and equipping a Dalma, but because our base res is solo, it won't do much. And if we're not careful with our placement, it won't matter at all because the damage here is quite significant and the hit rate will, while still being in our favor, can be a little high for my taste. And of course, I'm alluding to the fact that this is how our first attempt ends, from an unlucky shadow shot. Well, we'll go for another attempt here, and you can see that I'm gonna go for the hoping for a crit strategy or a dodge on the zombie dragon, and it may not be the best strategy because I get hit. It's not reliable. It's bad. Don't do it. Find another way. And there is technically another way. Because of the high movement of flying units, you can actually kind of get out of fighting the zombie dragon. You still have to take a hit to attract him away from the right side. But beyond that point, once he's moved a little bit over, you can fly around the right side of the map and make it to the corridor on the right without him being able to reach us. Because if he's not in range of you, he doesn't move. So that's a way to make it a little bit more reliable, technically. It ensures that we only have to use a single elixir. But then again, that's still not what we'd like at best. So even with his high strength and the high might of a Dalma, Cormag still falls a little bit short there, but we find another way to make it the Gorgon and to save on elixir uses. The Gorgons, on the other hand, will require me to do a lot of back and forth to heal because they will hit Cormag pretty freaking hard. We do get our fair share of dodges though to balance things out, but taking out the shadow shot ones put Cormag in a risky position. And luckily enough, our defense is good enough that the dogs here on the right side are a non-issue. But the magic damage from Lyon on the enemy phase will force me to use my final elixir. All 3 which I use in this little segment here, making this whole area quite tedious. And I decide to bank on a little bit of luck here and hope for crits by equipping the Killing Edge right before healing in front of Lyon. And unfortunately, I don't get any crits and then subsequently proceed to get hit by stone. Okay, so no luck was on my side here. Yeah, I don't think we can afford to cut any corners with this character on this end segment. We're gonna have to kill the whole cackle of Gorgons. So let's skip back ahead to that moment, because while we did get lucky on the zombie dragon on this attempt and get a crit, this last part of the map is absolutely not a given by any stretch at all. Here I start by taking out one of the shadow shots, Gorgons, much like I did earlier, and in the process I also take out the one with the regular attack. And now that I know that I'm somewhat safe, I can take out the other shadow shot one pretty handily. And finally, after the doggos attack me, I get to kill each of the stone one individually, because each one of them has exactly 31 HP and I get to do 32 damage when I have the spear equipped. So here, a mix of the correct equipment and a good strength stat really helps us out here, keeping the risk to a minimum. And now it's only me and Lyon, where I will once again opt for a crit option with the Killing Edge. And I do recognize now that the Brave Sword initially would have been the best idea, probably, given that it's technically 43 damage, which is more than half of his health. So, you know, do the math. That was probably the smart thing to do. The crit was a stupid idea to bank on. But sometimes in the heat of the moment, we do some spectacularly stupid things. Me more than most, but it's okay. It simply made me use my last elixir. But Cormag can now easily defeat Lyon for the first time using the Brave Sword. Yeah, I finally wise up to that, and we finally take out his magic dumbass. Not really using a Dalma at all, since our base res is so bad, again, that the +5 res passive barely comes into play. But you know what, it doesn't matter. The most important thing happens, and we get to our first Demon King fight. And here we finally pull out our Sacred Twin Weapon again, and the damage of 27 is actually pretty pretty good. But the best part, in my opinion, is his damage of 21, meaning that even if he hits us, we can tank a second hit. Although our hit rate is good, his hit rate is also pretty good. And we get to hit here, and luckily enough, we also get to dodge the first hit. So having no elixir here, so far, so good. We did get extremely lucky. And our luck does bite us a little bit because the reinforcement, turns out all the skeletons, or most of them, had rune sword, you know, magic weapons. Weapons that Cormag did not like. And we did end up getting hit by one of those 20%. So that's gonna suck a little bit. And gonna affect the fact that we had perfect HP. And hopefully they didn't do too much damage. But once again, we clear out the reinforcement. And let's go see how well this goes, shall we? Alright, Demon King, it's me and you. I got 43 HP. Adalma, 27. Okay, let's hope we hit both of those. We hit it. Does he hit us? He does. But we have, even if he hits us back there, we have 1 HP left. And does he hit us? Yes, we did survive with 1 HP. Okay, we cannot miss that 87% chance. And the Demon King is dead. Wow, that was kind of easy, wasn't it? It was pretty lucky that we had exactly 1 HP left, because, you know, one more hit of the reinforcements and we would have been below that threshold, and that would have cost us a lot. But at the end of the day, all I can say about this run is a simple wow. Cormag absolutely rocked this solo run and gave me probably one of the easiest, most seamless performance I've had during making this entire series. And it's a little refreshing after the last 2 we did. He didn't really struggle anywhere except on the final map and a little bit on chapter 18, and even those there was a few tricks we could pull out to ease their difficulty. And even with the struggle, he did end up clearing those 2 maps only in a couple of attempts, which overall is pretty impressive. To be fair, he also did clear the Demon King in 1 attempt, so that was a pretty big testament to his strength and defense, just generally. And his final time and turn count will give us a very solid picture, as Cormag gets a new best in both turn count and time, Mur excluded of course, just absolutely zooming through the game and doing it quite confidently. This also means we have a new king of the solo run in town, because I'm going to give him the #1 spot. Down with Queen Tana, and long may King Cormag reign, as he gets that new #1 spot, and much deserved, I must add. And I think this one is really hard to argue against given the general ease of the run. And again, while the final map had its issue, the Demon King we managed to clear with no elixir on the first try. So yeah, I guess the new #1 is much deserved. I don't know if the next run will dethrone him, but please let me know in the comments who you think might beat his time and placement. And thank you all for watching. I must give a huge shout out to all my members. If you want to become a member, hit the join button below. Check out all the tiers, and I'd like to give a huge shout out to all our tier 2 and 3 members, those being Hirame, Equipma Gameplay, Rogue Arcadia, Forgotten Fox, and Brawler 456. Thank you all you for the continued support, and thank you all for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you enjoyed the content, and I don't know when the next video will be and if it's going to be a solo run. By the time this video will be posted, I will be in the middle of a move, so lots of things are going to be happening, so I don't know when the next video is, but hopefully I'll see you in that one. Thank you guys for watching. Have a lovely rest of your week, day, month, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.